Well, howdy do, kids, and welcome to. Nope, howdy do is not what I say on this show. That's what I say on the other show. It's been a minute. I have been unavailable to do this show. Unfortunately, broke my tailbone. We talked about that. Had a family vacation, and then had a thing with a kid that I could not miss. One of her last ones of these things. So you can't be missing those things, Kevin. You just can't.
Nope.
Um, haven't gotten to talk NXT in more than a few minutes, which has been a bummer. But we're here, and I came back on a show that was not. Uh, in some ways, it didn't have a lot going on, but yes, in others, one specific other way it did. I'll tell you this: in the main event, my feed dropped. I'm gonna have you mute because I'm hearing myself, and it's it's driving me crazy. Um, so I'm going to. There it is. Now it's perfect. Okay, so I thought that everyone lost their feed at the end of the main event. That was apparently not the case. I added in an edit. Apparently that was related to where I am. There have been storms in and out of the area, so either affected my internet or affected. Basically, what happened was Trick regains control when Casey Navarro and the former Top Dollar get involved, and they're rolling Mike Santana into the ring, and that's when my feed cuts. So I know, because I have seen wrestling, what's about to happen. I know the Trick is going to hit the trick shot, and we've got the two TNA matches now promoted via NXT TV. I get that, and even said before I realized it was a me thing and not a nationwide thing, that is probably what happened. But what a bummer that this happened. And it is the second time that it's happened to me very near the end of the show here locally. So what are you going to do? Although I feel like the other time Nate said that it was nationwide. Couldn't tell you. But we'll get to the main event. Normally we start with that. Why don't we instead go to Mariah May, which might not be her name next week. Nobody said it. This is. I didn't know how soon I thought this was going to happen, but this is very Monday Night Wars, where things happened really, really quickly. Rick Rude being on both shows on the same night, being the biggest thing of that, because one show was taped and the other was not. But yeah, a real. Just a wild thing to see her up there on the perch after the lights went out. It's funny, she hadn't been gone long enough for me to even think, okay, this is that moment. That is not what happened. Ryan Solorio in chat says, I thought she was still under contract. LOL. I thought that there was a contract still to run out too. Apparently not the case. It's wrestling. They don't tell us everything, and they apparently didn't tell us this. So Mariah May have a new name next week. And that is where we are with her. But we had a very straightforward, odd scene with that first. Straightforward and odd. It really was both things. Fatal Influence came out now with JC Jane in the center instead of Fallon Henley. Just odd, and doing mic work that was kind of okay, because kind of okay is what JC Jane is. And she did some, yeah, she kind of cut on the entire division, and then the entire division came out to challenge her mostly. Basically anybody who was interesting at all. And then the lights went out, and when they were up, Mariah May was there, speaking to us all. I don't watch AEW almost ever because I don't want to. But at any rate, I have seen enough of her to know that that this could be the real deal. Very interested to see where this heads with her, and where. I mean, we know she'll be slotted high. We know JC is probably a transitional champion, but I guess we're going to see just how much so she is, and whether she's transitioning to her or to Jordan Grace, who still could be in the mix or could be fast track to the main roster now, because really, what does Jordan need to know at this point? I'm Kelly Wells at other Kelly Wells on Blue Sky. Kevin, who are you? And thank you for being here.
Listen, it is always my pleasure to be here. Thank you for asking. I am Kevin P. Cattani. You can find me at Blue Sky at KP Cattani and Twitter at KP Cattani and all over the social media sphere at KP Cattani. I am very excited to talk this show um, because of yet to be named blonde British wrestler and her appearance, but also as someone who had followed Santana and Ortiz through their migrations through wrestling. I don't think I ever thought in a million years I'd see him on WWE television, and so that was really cool to see that too. So those were the two big um, appearances that caught me off. Well, one caught me off guard, and one was just really cool to see after all these years. And I'm excited to talk the show with you. So let's get into it.
Ryan asks us, you think Mariah May is in NXT short term? I'm going to take a cue from recency bias and say, yeah, probably. I think her stay could be shorter than 6 months, maybe even well shorter than 6 months. Like Julia and Stephanie Vaquer, who took to it like a horse to water, as you knew they would. All they really had to do was learn how WWE is produced, because different companies produce things different ways, and going there to get it right so they're not exposed being in the wrong area or just facing the wrong area on the main roster is less likely. It's probably not going to happen anyway to these pros, but things are done differently. So that's really what it's about. So I would say probably a short stay. What say you to that?
Yeah, I think that I would have to assume someone of her pedigree is probably in a similar boat to the names you just mentioned, as a way of just sort of getting them used to the consistent camera angles and sort of how you position yourself for different things. But I think she's been in the game long enough too that she'll hopefully make a quick adaptation of it. And yeah, I saw Brock mentioned in the comments the potential for Mariah to potentially hold the title. I could very easily see her being someone who doesn't need it. In much the same way that I think I expected Julia to do more at NXT, and she was brought up way quick. So yeah, I could see her having a few matches, being part of maybe a 3 or a 4 way in one of the pay-per-views coming up, and then probably going right up. Um, Probably opposite whatever brand Tiffany's on, because I don't know if they want two blondes on the same show, and their styles are somewhat on the same side of the ledger. So, but yeah, I could see it being a short term stay. Um, and I also, yeah, thought too, Brock, that I thought I read somewhere that Jordan also was called up with um, La Primera and Julia. So I guess we'll see.
I haven't seen Raw yet. So if that happened, like, I know a little bit about what happened. Um, I don't know which I, I don't know. Right now, we're at a time where if you miss one show and you haven't seen it yet, by the time you're talking about the next show, you could be exposed, because things are so in flux in terms of roster turnover. And that happened to me a handful of weeks ago, where I thought something was going to happen, and the opposite had happened on TV already. But yes, I didn't realize Jordan was called up, and would have thought so, except for the fact she showed up this week. But Roxy showed up well after what was really happening. So Ryan says Stephanie versus Liv versus Ivy is a really good match. And yeah, I have no doubt. But I do already know who won it, thanks to watching tonight's show. So certainly happy about it. But yeah, it's not surprised that one delivered, because why wouldn't it? Gene Albert on Back to Mariah May says she doesn't have a name other than glamorous. Yes, this is a situation where I'd love to know, do they know what her name is going to be, and they're not telling us, or do they just think we got the extra week? If we find something we like more, then great. And that has to be tough when you're talking about somebody who's going to be a major star, because you don't want to think of the perfect name 5 minutes after you've delivered another one. And it used to be, I'm old enough that I remember if they had somebody on TV and they didn't like their name, they would just change it. With the Viking, they changed him to the Berserker. And I think he was even very briefly the Berserker John Nord, and then he was just the Berserker. Because why would you add all that if you were just gonna? I don't know, it was so weird in those times. So I know that was one that happened, and there's somebody else who. Oh well, Thurman Sparky Plug turning into Bob Sparkplug Holly, which is of course the barrier that was keeping him from being a main event talent. Kevin, I believe that the issue I was having audio-wise was on my end earlier, so we might be fine, because my audio was doing what I told it not to do, because that's what my computer do. Yes, I do not hear myself
I just
anymore.
came off mute, so do you hear me anymore?
Yep.
Or do you hear you
I hear
anymore?
you, and I don't hear me. It was an audio output issue on my end, so nice. We all good. Have we talked to Mariah May to death? I mean, that's what we're here for. But if you've got more comments on her, go ahead.
I don't know if I have any more. I've seen Ryan now say twice that it's going to be Mariah June. My buddies and I used to joke when Ricochet first got brought into WWE that they were going to just change his name to RICKO''SHEA, so he could still be Ricochet, but he'd just be Rick O'Shea. So I could see them playing with calendar months or something with Mariah. But I think it's awesome that she's here. I'm excited for people who didn't watch a lot of AEW who now saw her for the first time to get to kind of see what she does. And so, like you said, no reason to rush a name if they're still sort of ironing that out. Although it would have been nice to allow Vic to be able to scream, "Oh my goodness, that's blah blah blah," as a way of trying to get that first hook in. But it is what it is. And then also just quick hi CJ, I saw you said hello to us earlier. So yeah, I think we can move on if you want to. I think there'll be more to come with Mariah in the coming weeks. So.
And to put a bow on this, Gene Albert 13 in the chat says, "What would Vince do?" And Ryan says, "Vince would just take Mariah out and call her May." LOL. Or take out the May and call her Mariah, because two names.
Can't have May and May Young. You can't do that. Yeah, you can't do that.
Yes, indeed. Weird times. That's like our second or third visit to the. Well, not that the Attitude Era was our only era, but I'm of the age.
Also, can I just say I was also a huge Berserker fan. I'm sorry for interrupting. I was a huge Berserker fan.
Yeah, Huss throwing guys out of the ring and winning by count out over jobbers, I think is hilarious.
Yes, and I'm surprised that the Vikings didn't call him and ask him to be their mascot for football games.
Oh, but it might have been the Vikings who said cease and desist. You cannot go.
Also fair.
But true to Vikings' words, he was awesome, but never won a championship. That's where we're still sitting, we Viking fans over here, both. Okay, so let's go to the main event, where I did indeed have issues with the TV. Probably right around 12 minutes. I was timing it, and that's about where it was going to land, 12 or maybe 13. But at any rate, Trick defeats Mike Santana to defend the TNA Championship in quite a nice little match. Santana is really a great underdog babyface. He really, really has the ability to show heart, to like really make it seem like he is fighting for a championship. Like, he honestly looks like he's trying to win more than most wrestlers bother to do. I just think he's great at that. We also had Elijah, the erstwhile Elias in the audience. He had a guitar out there solely so Trick could grab it and smash it against the steps. Why not? Money well spent. And that apparently is going to be Trick's next defense. And Santana, of course, will have the issue if he didn't have one already. I don't watch TNA either. With Casey Navarro and the former Top Dollar AJ Francis. So I really like this main event, other than the 10 seconds of it that I couldn't see. What do you have on the main event and the main event scene? And Trick, he was roundly booed tonight. Roundly booed.
Yeah.
Which is what they want. But why do they want it? Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, I like I said, I was super jacked to see Santana on the screen. I've been a fan of his and his longtime partner Ortiz for a very long time, and so it's just kind of cool to see him, I guess, in the mainstream. I don't mean disrespect to his previous work, but to finally see him on a program that I watch pretty religiously. Yeah, I thought the match was really good. The issues I guess I had. It's interesting to me that Elias/Elijah largely exists in the same macro universe, but has to sort of be called the new. Like, it's just funny that now that he's going to be showing up on WWE television in some form again, that he has to stick with the Elijah thing when he already has probably merch in a box somewhere in the warehouse that says Elias on it. Like, I don't know. So I guess that's kind of a continuity thing that's a little weird. But I thought the match was really good. It was certainly interesting to see Top Dollar on TV again, because I feel like when he left kind of
There
in
was
some
bad blood.
flames.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He decided to go up in flames a little bit. He's actually a really great Twitter follow, just because he won't stop talking.
No,
Like,
no.
yeah, he seems like an interesting guy who maybe could do himself a favor by leaving some of it unsaid. But at any rate,
Well, I
interesting
just
guy to
saw.
listen to. Yeah.
Yeah, I just saw Ryan's comment. I think Elias and Elijah should take on Chad Gable and El Grande Americano in a "We're Not Who You Think We Are" tag team match, and we'll see how that one goes.
And
Um,
Ezekiel will make the run in
yes,
to
yes.
win for Elias and
Um,
Elijah. Yeah.
Now, I didn't have any feed issues the entire night, but similar to you, we also were having bad storms several latitude lines south of you. And so my whole night, I had like a picture in picture with the weather channel, essentially telling us what the tornado warnings were. And so my audio, like anytime the weather channel clicked in, I lost NXT audio. So I hope there were no witty quips by the commentary team, because I missed a lot of that. I got to see all the action. I just didn't get to hear a lot of the commentary because of the tornado warnings and whatnot. Um, but I was really kind of hoping, and perhaps I was being foolish. I was hoping the match would just go to a finish, but I'm not surprised that it didn't. Um, and I hope that, because I thought Santana looked really good in the ring with Trick. I hope that they will go back to that, and let him have another shot at him with a potential clean finish, because I thought the match was going pretty well until the angle at the end. Um, so yeah, I thought all in all, it's always cool to see. I really do think, now that we're into this for a while now, I think this partnership between TNA and WWE has largely been going pretty well for both groups. And so I think that that's a good sign. And I think um, the more exposure that they can get both ways, I think it just looks good about the relationship in general. And then, of course, I'm sure we'll get to it, but I think it was during this match that they showed El Hijo del Vikingo, and I'm super excited to see that match. So I know we'll talk about that in a little bit, but um, seeing him in the crowd was also pretty cool. So
Yeah. It's been cool to see what they've been able to do with this partnership. And I saw somebody on, I don't know why I go on pro wrestling social media. Like, I never have fun. I, I, I don't know why I do it. But I just saw a guy just like super angry at the idea that that Chad Gable was being pitched behind the scenes as well as El Grande Americano winning the AAA championship, and them saying why would WWE bury these companies by having their champions, having them become their champions? And my answer to that is that visibility does so much good for them. Like people really, especially if the WWE guy is a heel, because then you really want to see him get toppled, and that's the situation Gable's in. And I think it's odd that so many people don't get that he's a heel. So whatever, it's a big picture that I don't need to talk about because that's not our show. But it'll be on Worlds Collide, whatever. But yeah, I think that. I mean, make no mistake, Trick is a much, much more visible wrestler than Joe Hendry or certainly Mike Santana. So the visibility goes a long way. So the TNA guys totally understand why those things would even be on the table. I mean, they get it, even if fans do not. Brock Benningfield says with TNA, AAA, LFG, and Evolve, there are a lot of times I find myself saying, "Who's that?" That's my deal for LFG. Other than the two winners, because now I've got them committed to memory. Because I thought maybe I'll watch this, and then it turned out my life had no more time for one more wrestling show. I do watch Evolve, so I know all those names. So when Callie Armstrong was in there with Stevie Turner, I did know the names of the women who were sitting in the locker room behind them, even though none of them got speaking roles. And I think this is the first time Callie's gotten to speak a line on NXT. I can't remember because I do watch her on Evolve every week, and she's good on the stick. So I'm psyched about Callie. But I wonder if they'll wait to really move her up until they've moved Jada Parker up, because there's got to be something more to differentiate them, because I see some people comparing Parker to Belair, and I don't see that. I
No,
really
I don't like
don't
that.
see that. But Parker and Armstrong are much more similar, and in terms of style and what they bring. So that might be something that they maybe work on. But Callie's great. She's super strong. She's mean. Oh God, I love her. So yeah, really, really glad that she is first women's champion over there. And the 4-way that they had, worth watching. So there you go. Where do we go from there? Where were we on a match? We really weren't yet.
No.
Let's go to the one other match that got decent time, that being the 8-man Dragon Lee, Shawn Legacy, Javon Evans, Laredo Kid versus Ethan Page, and all three members of Swipe Right, being Jackson Drake, Brad Baylor, and Ricky Smokes, whose name I'm still fighting to remember, even though I've seen him a bunch. He is, well, he's not the other guy in Swipe Right. Swipe Right has two more members. They have another guy and they have a girl.
Oh.
They're not NXT ready, so they haven't been showing them on NXT TV. They might get there. They're trying with the girl hard. They're giving her mic time, but I wouldn't put her on NXT yet either. And the other guy, they don't have talk at all. He's like a tall, brooding, quiet type. So there they go. But these three, yeah, I think these three are getting close to being an act that could be there. Although Corey Graves said what I always think, which was a quip about Brad Baylor could really be a superstar once he hits puberty. Brad Baylor looks so young, and I've been waiting for somebody to call that out, or I thought maybe they'll just ignore it and hope that we don't think that he looks super young, but he does.
All three of them do, really.
They do. They're all fresh-faced dudes, but Brad Baylor really looks like if you told me he was a tall middle schooler, I would believe it. With Jackson Drake and Ricky Smokes, I can at least say, like, yeah, these look like frat boys. Yeah, so there was, anyway, an 8-man tag match that was pretty good. Laredo Kid did have an unfortunate little bump after he tried what was he going up for? A plancha. But at any rate, he tripped on a rope and just right down to the mat, loud, right, and it was right in front of the announcers, right in front of all those mics. So we heard it real loud. But he seemed okay as he still figured into the match. Your main roster guy, Dragon Lee, got to get the pin because that's something he doesn't do on the main roster very often. And he pinned Brad Baylor after 13:29. This was the kind of loud, obnoxious, like schmaz mess that usually I dislike. But they had been really, really good with pacing out everything and kind of slowing things down. It was when every match was like this that I absolutely was just not digging NXT. But I think this got away with it because they're not doing that in every match anymore. I know that I'm writing Tope Suicida about 80% less than I used to, and I think that's good. I think only a handful of people in the entire business make a Tope Suicida look like it's actually anything to fear. Otherwise, they're just kind of pushing somebody, which is how most of them look. And so, why is it worth the risk? But yeah, your 8-man baby faces win in this feel good, all leading up to NXT Worlds Collide, not NXT Worlds Collide, everything Worlds Collide, which will be very cool. But it's a standalone show, which is what made this show so weird because they're promoting a show with guys that aren't on the show, so it kind of like slowed down the momentum of what NXT is doing. Kind of like when NXT did Survivor Series, and you had a show that was memorable, but they had to completely stop what they were doing in NXT and say, okay, these faces and heels who hate each other are in the same Survivor Series team because they're too big of stars to leave off the card. So whatever. So in that way, I didn't love the storytelling this week because so much of it was serving that, but it will be a good show. All right, I prattled on. 8-man.
No, I liked it. I liked it a lot. And let me just make this comparison. And we're gonna go in the Wayback Machine for the third time, Kelly. And I say this with love, but the heel team very much reminded me because to me all three of those swipe right guys pull one out, put one in. It's the same kid. Very much reminded me. Remember the Survivor Series where it was Jerry Lawler and his three knights, and it was three people under a hood of different colors. That's what that team reminded me of, with the
That's funny.
established star and the three
Those three
21 year
guys were
olds.
such different wrestlers. It was Greg the Hammer Valentine, Barry Horowitz, and it's the tall guy, Jeff something or other. Never was a superstar. Wasn't the guy who became Chains, was it? No, no, it
Oh, I
was
don't think so. No,
no, no,
no.
no. Brian Lee was the Underfaker. No, it was a guy named Jeff something, but the other two were Greg the Hammer and Barry Horowitz. Yeah, for me, I definitely know the difference between the three swipe right guys, but I have watched them quite a bit. So and Jackson Drake is the singles guy, and the other two, Brad Baylor and Ricky Smokes, and maybe you're not recalling their faces right now because you haven't seen them a lot. They are a regular tag team. They're the duo within the 5-person faction that may become a 3-person faction if they decide 3 of them are ready and 2 aren't. Yeah, Sean Plichta says, I think it's Plichta. You can tell me if it's Plichta or Plichta. I can't watch all of these shows, LOL. Not enough time in a day. I can't either, but for some reason, I'm just loving the intimacy of Evolve. I liked old studio wrestling, and that's what it is. I'm into it, and I can just throw it on late when I don't need to like be as engaged as I would during NXT because I cover it. So it's easy. I have seen every one of them. Gene Albert says gives Mean Street Posse. It does a little bit. It I read an interview not that long ago with Pete Gas, and it's it's like we on the outside knew that this had a shelf life, but Pete Gas really tried to make it work, and he kind of was an okay wrestler by the end of the time. But who was going to take those guys seriously in that or any other wrestling company. So he and Rodney really didn't do anything else after that. And Joey Abs had been wrestling, and he continued to wrestle. And his story is a different one that we won't get into. Sean answers me and says, Plikta is how it's pronounced. Polish. Okay, Plikta sounded more correct to me. But it might just be Vic constantly mispronouncing things. It's finally just, I don't know how to pronounce anything anymore. Vic gave it the old college try on saying larynx, but he said it like every like dopey kid, larynx. Oh, Vic. Oh my God.
Well, listen, Vic's not known for his acuteness of phraseology, I guess.
Yeah. Or brains or talent.
Wow, wow, wow. Well, unlike that lack of talent, I thought the 8-man tag provided a lot of talent. Also, Sean, sorry, this is a Diet Wild Cherry Pepsi in a Star Wars koozie. If you can see here, it says "It's a trap." It's one of my favorite lines. And then also, I was scrolling up and I saw Brock give a nice new tagline, Kelly, on the heels of your not having to write the tope suicida as much. NXT now with less suicide dives, and that made me laugh. So thank you, Brock. Um, yeah, I think anytime the face team certainly was a mix of guys we're going to see at Worlds Collide, and it was really good to see um, Dragon Lee back on NXT. I think I still sort of think he was really sort of building momentum before they called him up. And after several rounds of, oh, don't worry, he's about to get a big push, and not, I guess I kind of hope they would have let him stay and get a little more seasoning down there. But I'm glad he got the pin because, like you said, he does not get many of those on the main roster. Um, and yeah, I again, just to cover my own butt, I didn't think that the heel trio was lacking in talent at all. I just, knowing that I don't watch Evolve as religiously, um, it just kind of seemed like, the here's the named star and the three guys who next week you won't see. So that it just kind of reminded me of that Survivor Series
No, I
thing.
get it. Like at age 47, I should not be trying to jam 32 new names in my head all at once. I should let them roll them out, say, hey, pay attention to these two new people, because then I'll get them. I was like 4 episodes into Evolve when I realized I don't know anybody's name yet. I haven't memorized really any of them. So really, all I knew were the people who were visiting from NXT, many of which have been cut now. Like the first 4 or 5 episodes of Evolve are just loaded with people who aren't in the company anymore.
Womp womp.
But this is neither here nor there. We have talked about that already. Anything more on the 8-man,
Nope.
or am I free to run?
No, I think we can keep it moving. I'm excited to see Laredo Kid because that's a name I've heard a bunch and I've caught on here and there, and so I'd like to see what he can do in less of a full ring scenario. So
Miles Bourne versus Charlie Dempsey. This was a rounds match. I love rounds matches. If it's probably been a while since I've gotten to say that because Lexus King, who is now also pretty much more on Evolve than on NXT, um, which he's doing something there, like being the teacher, but he's the bad guy. So they're doing a rounds match and saying Noam Dar must be watching proud from somewhere. And I'm like, if Noam Dar is going to be a champion on your show, have him on the show. I don't know if he got injured again, like right away or
well, I
anything.
hope not.
I think it's interesting that they have not found any time for him on TV, despite this week's show being like an, an employment program. Um, but at any rate, Miles Bourne wins this one in the fourth round, 2-1. There was only one round, the second, which didn't have a pinfall, and that is because that was almost entirely during split screen break. But Miles wins at the tail end of the first one. Uh, Cheap shot at the end of the second fall by Dempsey. Second round. So he wins the third quickly and takes the advantage in the fourth. But Bourne comes back and wins with that thing that it's surprising is a finisher, a drop kick. So Miles Bourne now doesn't have to be in no quarter catch crew. Odd that he had to win a match to leave the group, because you could just do it.
Yeah, you would think so.
But apparently Charlie's not having that. He's a stern taskmaster. But yeah, Bourne is now free, and I guess the question will be, what will Tavian Heights do, and what will Ren Sinclair do? It was just a match. It was nice. I guess there's that. Hopefully, I left you some talking points.
Firstly, what's up with all of our families breaking up? We've got this group falling apart. We've got Tony D'Angelo's family falling apart. I feel like this was the week for factions to shrivel up and die, I guess.
And a couple of them did a couple weeks ago. I mean, Metaphor was very recent, and the Calling beat.
Yeah, and that was weird. That was weird tonight too. We'll get to that, I'm sure. But I guess what I'm struggling with, and struggle might be a strong word, and you can help me. Except that this was meant that could have gone a couple of rounds more. Why was the only reason they didn't call this a Heritage Cup match because that wasn't on the line?
Yeah, they just called it a rounds match, a British rounds match, and that
because it's the exact same format.
Yep, these are called British rounds matches, but they took the British rounds match and applied that to the Heritage Cup. So now people think of it as a Heritage Cup match.
Oh, I see. Okay,
but that's just a British rounds match for the Heritage Cup Championship.
And that's a standard rule set: is first person to two pinfalls.
British round matches have been around for a while, but I have not looked at like the history of that.
Sure.
I just remember what I was taught when they rolled that out in on NXT UK, and it very quickly became the thing I looked forward to most.
There you go. Well, I thought they both did great. I think if you were trying to have Miles Bourne get out of the shadow that is Randy Orton in his appearance, they certainly didn't do him any favors this week going back to the full black trunks with the black boots. I think if you were gonna do an action movie, there's your stunt double right there, at least this week. So I guess that's where I kind of I thought that he did so. He wrestled Oba so well that I thought, okay, maybe they're going to start letting him live into this new identity. And then today, right back to the all black Randy Orton sort of vibe. But I'm excited they're giving him time. I think he certainly is earning it. I'm excited to kind of see what he can do with more of a spotlight on him. I know they didn't talk much about his deafness today, but I think if that can give them a new platform to reach and show advocacy to a new group of fans, I'm all for that, because I think part of fandom is being able to see yourself in the activity you participate in or spectate. And so I think that could be a really cool way to bring some of that in. But I know you don't want to kind of hit people over the head with it every week if you don't have to. So I'll be excited to see how that goes. Again, I think Charlie Dempsey is such a callback to just sort of that old style gritty. It's a shame that, well, actually, no, isn't Timothy Thatcher in TNA? I feel like the two of them could make a pretty smash mouth tag team if they wanted, because they both sort of wrestle that throwback, no frills style.
He's certainly been working Evolve, doing a lot of that. So I don't know if he's in TNA.
Oh, sorry. Maybe that's what I meant, Evolve, because I knew I saw his face.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ryan. Sorry, I knew I saw his face. I couldn't remember what poster. But I think their styles match well. Why not see if he wants to get added to the no quarter catch crew if Bourne is out.
Yeah, I don't know, because Thatcher has been mostly losing on Evolve. In fact, I think he has only lost. I'm not.
So is the no quarter catch crew. So,
well, I guess that's true. When your leading guy has been losing, then what the heck's it good for? And speaking of which, the Calling. I guess that was the next thing that happened on the show. And I think it was Ryan who says, Brooks Jensen feels like it missed a chapter. That is what I thought. I just thought that her response and Izzy taking the chair to Brooks Jensen was just a so out of nowhere moment. And Sean Spears was all into it. He was like, yeah, I like it. Yeah, I don't know. It's not like I look forward to what these guys are doing. At least they finally did something with them. But Brooks Jensen, 4 years, 5 years into his tenure, it seems like he gets ever so slightly less important all the time. I don't know if this is going to be, because out of the ashes of this, he could make a face turn, but they did beat who was it? Was it Alexander Wolf got beat out of Imperium,
Yeah.
and you thought maybe he'd turn face, but instead he was released.
Instead he got cut. There you go.
Yeah, so they just beat him up to kick him out because they were going to fire him. So yeah, Sean says not a fan of the calling. Barack says me neither. Really, never really been a fan of anything Spears has done. Hey man, we're together on that. Ryan Slorio says he's either done or rejoined Josh Briggs, and Josh Briggs has a partner, so they don't need to. And then Harmon Smith drops in and says they're speed running the storyline. Yeah, I guess. Hopefully they'll fill in the blanks, and if not, it might be that Brooks is done.
Maybe Brooks can rejoin the other heavy machinery guy, and they can form a new tag team.
Oh, Tucker?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, Tucker Knight.
His name was escaping me, but
yeah,
the Janetti of heavy machinery.
Yep. Oh well. Okay, so 2 other matches in this one: Tyra May Steele versus Ariana Grace. Ariana, I said in my post, it was kind of like seeing a ghost because she just has not had a lot of TV time.
No.
And this woman who's very funny, very good looking, usually gets a really strong reaction, not getting a huge reaction in this one. She did a quick job, 2 minutes 23 seconds to Tyra May Steele, who showed some nice enough power, but not a lot to go on for those of us who haven't seen LFG. Kevin.
Well, I watched all of LFG, and I don't want to start a fight with Todd Martin because he's a very strong presence on the torch. But last week when Jasper Troy got his match, I don't know how much of LFG Todd watched, but I watched the whole series and I thought it was a fabulous show, and I'm excited for both of them. I think if I have to compare the two, I think Jasper has a bit more of an upside, just sort of in general. But I think Tyra certainly has the performance or the athletic ability. I think her whole critique throughout the show was just sort of that mic personality, the promos, that sort of thing. Because I do think that a lot of times the legit athletes, especially from the amateur wrestling world, typically they tend to be more introverted in their personality outside of wrestling, and so they were continually trying to get her to come out of that. So I'm not surprised it was a short match. I don't think Jasper Troy's was that long either, and they're just breaking them in. But I do think they both can make some waves as they continue to develop. So I felt bad for Miss Grace as well, but I did see the clip of her and her father slash the minister of authority or whatever he's called, Santino, have that mix tag on TNA. That was really cool. So
yeah, Ryan says Ariana had a tag team match with Santino last week, and I thought he was saying maybe on NXT TV, and that I thought maybe I was in a time where maybe I was in a different timeline. But apparently I didn't miss anything. Okay, so One other match on this: Chase University versus Dark State. Would you believe that Chase University is doing a storyline where they're losing and Andre Chase is unsure of himself? Would you believe they're doing that?
That is the first time I've heard of that variant of the storyline. That's crazy.
Oh, I just feel like I've seen this a lot. Yeah, Chase University versus Dark State. Dark State wins this, of course, 329. I don't have anything specifically against Dark State, but when they're not on TV, I forget that they're a thing. Um, I think they wanted them to be like main event pests, and they've just decided like, okay, we've got to slow this down, and and now they're just dudes who win 6-man matches with one guy on the outside assisting in the win. So all of them except Sugars were in this one. Um, and yeah, Chase University repeating story beats because that's what they do. Also, I always forget that Uriah Connors has that crazy long hair thing until he whips it out in the match. So okay match, but a really short opener. 329 is a short opener for NXT. There you go.
Yeah, I tell you, I agree with you about Dark State, and yeah, like you said, it's almost like they hit the gas full throttle, and then literally took their foot completely off like the extremes are too big. I think they have a lane that they can fill, and it's almost like they got the admin got too scared about the track they were going and sort of turned to right very very quickly. And I don't know um, if that was the way to go either. But I think certainly the guys in that group have the look, and I think they continue to sort of package them as that like wild card, sort of just outside the lines of authority group. And again, I think there's something there. They need to kind of find that middle ground. And with Chase, yeah, I tell you, if I thought that the 8-man tag had interchangeable parts on the heel side, the two guys with Chase, and maybe I don't know, are those guys also evolved guys because they also seemed like he
The
went
two
into
guy
the two guys with Chase.
Uriah Uriah Connors and Cale Dixon.
Sure.
They're not on Evolve, no.
Okay, okay. But they seem like he went into the back of a classroom and picked two guys, and that's who the two guys he picked. I don't know. I didn't feel like there was a lot of personality in them, but um, maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. But I do hope that they will change the story beats of Chase in short order. You're right, because this does seem like there could be a lot of people in the crowd sort of doing the wait a minute, didn't we already hear this record already? And that can be
Yeah.
hurtful if unless, well, and of course they could always be building towards some kind of swerve, I suppose. But you don't want to lose the crowd before you ever really build them. And I think with unestablished names other than Chase in that group, you're kind of fighting uphill in a couple of different directions. So I hope that they can find their footing there. Um, and yeah, I would love to see Dark State get a little more substance with a little more regularity, but I know there's a lot of folks in the locker room and only so much time to fill. So
You know that Chase University has been a fiction for a faction for as long as WCW's NWO.
really,
5 years, baby.
oh jeez Louise.
They've been
You
around
could
for
have given me several guesses at that, and I don't know that I would have come up with that.
yeah. They've either bumped up to the length of NWO or they're past it. Because
That sounds like a
they might be
Harley
past it
fact, by the
because
way.
WCW. Oh, I used to keep all these facts. I used to be more insane than Harley about this, but by the time we started the show, Harley was firmly the one doing stats. Well, wins and losses anyway. He's got that spreadsheet. But yeah, Nitro only lasted 5.5 years. So and yeah, it was 2-3 years into it
Wow.
that NWO happened, or a year.
Well,
Yeah, I
then we
think
can
Chase University might be longer now.
definitively say then that Chase University is clearly the better faction because their staying power is longer. So there you go.
Staying power. Yep, you can't deny it. Sold slightly less merch, maybe. Oh boy, I was in college when the NWO happened, and dude, you've never seen so many wrestling shirts. They were almost all either Austin or NWO, but it's just insane that every dude that 2 years before was like, I would never watch wrestling, was wearing one of these.
Oh, for sure.
Uh,
Oh, for sure.
uh, Brock Benningfield adds, Chase U Wolfpack, brother. That's the only way to go. Split them up. Have your Chase faction, have your Hudson faction, have your Bodie Hayward
Is
faction.
Thea officially out of Chase U?
It sure seems like it. Yeah, I think they did a
Because
scene
yeah,
where
she
she
was
more
not
or less,
wearing the gear today.
yeah, she acknowledged that she wasn't in the group anymore, but like still, it was still part of her or whatever. Yeah, it's just Andre. I mean, if I was going to be an NXT lifer and I'd figured it out like Andre probably has, I would be depressed in my scenes too. I just he's been around so long and he can work, but he doesn't seem any closer to the main roster to me than he was on day one. He just doesn't.
Yeah.
Okay. Just a few other things happened in this episode. I don't have an email from you because you're here. So I don't have an email to read from you. Yeah, influencers reacting also in reality to JC Jane. Just some really over the top things. Jasper Troy and Obafemi had a bit of a stare down signing a contract. Jasper Troy saying you've never had to look up at an opponent. And Femi said it doesn't matter if I have to chop down a redwood, it'll be the same. Zaruka and Tatum Paxley were in a scene. Tatum is still sad Tatum, and Izzy showed up and stirred some crap. And then Tony D and Luca had a scene where Luca made a match next week against High Rise, and Tony D said, "You did this without talking to the family," and Luca pointed out there really is no family anymore. So there's your moment of the week. That was the most important thing that happened on the show. I know, sorry, Mariah May,
That
but
tugged at my heartstrings right there, There really is
yeah,
no family anymore. Ugh.
you just needed a cheek kiss here, and
I no, I needed Vin Diesel to pop in the corner of the screen like the old Mortal Kombat game and be like Toasty and like give the family line.
right. So those were our backstage things, and JC Jane. Sean says JC Jane as champion is just so weird. It
Amen.
is as
Amen.
that champion. I think you know what I said it in the. I didn't get to say this last week because I wasn't here, but what like they did everything so well. They produced it so well to have Mike Rome looking shocked, like everybody just like, oh my god, is this supposed to happen and everything like that. But in the end, it's still JC Jane is your champion. And they've rarely given her matches that eclipse 4.5 minutes, and because they know that they shouldn't. But if she's just going to be a step over for Mariah May, I mean, have Mariah May beat her in 30 seconds. Why not?
Yeah,
Just
amen.
do something big, go real big. And Gene Albert says, I was on a cruise last week. JC Jane is champion. Surprised the hell out of me.
Nice humble brag,
Yeah,
Gene. I appreciate that.
that one was actually spoiled for me because I was not able to do the show, and I guess Nate just thought since I couldn't do the show, I wasn't going to eventually watch NXT, and he sent a profanity laced message to me about what they had just booked, and I was just like, would have liked to see that, but at the same time, is he serious? Is he high? I don't know.
No, as
So
soon as
yeah,
the show went
very
off the
strange.
air, Nate and I also exchanged expletive-laden messages to each other.
Yeah. CJ LaChapelle says, what do you think about WWE deciding not to renew R-Truth? Sure, I'll do a main roster question. I like R-Truth a lot, like a whole lot. I've had my share laps with him, and I dig what he has done. He's 53. He's at an age where even Japan isn't booking guys to do anything special anymore, and they keep their guys in the ring until they fall apart into just collapse into dust.
Yes. See
I
Naito.
Yeah. Oh gosh. And Naito has left, but Naito's going to turn to dust here pretty soon. Yeah, I some of the online discourse about this has been weird to me because I mean, they employed this guy for 17 years. That's that's the dream. So getting there for 17 years in his second run with the company is pretty amazing because he had dropped in. He was in Royal Rumble 2001, I think, also. And then he, during his first very short stop there. And the reason I remember that is because in his first and second Royal Rumbles, which were 8 years apart, both times he was eliminated with a press slam by the Big Show. Exactly the same elimination 8 years apart, and two 10 years apart. But and then somebody else saying, I can't believe they let him go without fanfare. And I just thought, man, he's been a comedy guy for 15 years, and they gave him a world championship match. That's fanfare. Yeah, he's doing great, and he had a great career, and he is a wrestler, so he knows that none of this lasts forever. Like
Yeah.
nobody's there forever. Very few people are there forever. I feel like there's use that could be had out of him in the backstage, but you could say that by a lot of guys. I'm not worried for R-Truth. It's somebody's going to want what he can provide one way or another, and that's fine. And if he wants to retire, he's earned it. I dig him a lot, but I'm not going to say you need to keep a 53-year-old guy on the
Yeah.
roster when you have so much talent coming up. And I keep wanting to waffle because it's hard to say this about somebody that I dig as much as I do him. But that's how I feel.
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because like you said, he has a lot of equity with fans. He was always very entertaining. He never had a bit where you were not either laughing or smiling. He made you feel good, and I think that's a quality that you can't say about a lot of people. Um, I think, um, I think that that's kind of what hurt about it. You have to remember, unfortunately, that now that WWE has new corporate overlords, they're far more concerned about bottom lines and payroll and all that than they ever were under Vince. And I think and I'm sure that he was getting paid pretty well, and absent some sort of renegotiation that would mean less money but more security, it's tough to justify that money for kind of what the role he was in. I did see somebody online um, say something that made me laugh, where they said that AEW needs to sign him immediately and just start sticking him in the background of things, looking lost, and just sort of play up the "Am I in the right place?" sort of thing. I think that'd be hilarious. Um, and then, yeah, I saw Brian Alston, senior PWTorch VIP member, mention that he thought that it should have been handled better, and I think I agree with that. That for someone to be with you almost 20
I was
years
mhm.
and
I was going
largely
to pull that one
be,
up and
yeah, sorry, so well, I
say
figured you might.
TKO
But
just doesn't seem like they want to handle these things better. But go ahead.
well, and it's a shame because they're a big corporation, and they have a lot of sort of companies under their umbrella, and you'd think someone who's been a company person for all of his run, that there would have been a better narrative or a better way that happens than Truth having to go on Twitter and say, "Oh, hey, by the way, I've been let go. Don't cry because it's over. Cry because whatever it was." It's like, Like it doesn't sit right in that way. But like you said, I'm not surprised that it did happen. Um, you know, I would bet, like I said, that his line item on the budget was a pretty sizable one. And if they're trying to bring some new people in, knowing that Cena is gone at the end of the year and Randy Orton's not getting any younger, and some of these other guys aren't really getting any younger, you've got to have some money, some money floating around to start cultivating some new talent. So it's a shame. I know that he will show up somewhere, perhaps in TNA as Truth. I don't know. Him and Elijah can make a hey, we have a slightly different name and a new company tag team as well. So
Truth being on TNA would be perfect because then he could do the thing. Like they could have their cake and eat it too, because they could then feature him on NXT and they could do the thing where he's like, "Am I supposed to be here?"
yes, you're right. It would have to happen on AEW. Put him in TNA and let
Yeah.
that happen.
Yeah, Brock Benningfield says he is beloved. That's where I think that's where the outrage comes from. Yeah, I think it is that simple, Brock. People just like him. Because I was tempted to say he's been around 17 years. When he gets let go, people are going to complain that he's gone because he's been such a fixture of their entire viewing lives. But Bob Holly was around for 17 years, and I think when he was let go, this reaction did not happen. So because it was just Bob Holly and Sean.
Well, and too, and I think we've talked about this before, and I don't think it was 17 years, but Heath Slater was around for far longer than maybe he should have been too. And my buddies and I used to say, nobody gets into the WWE to be Heath Slater, but anybody in WWE would be Heath Slater knowing how long he stuck around and was on payroll. So I think in a slightly similar way, you could say that about Truth, is like, he never got the main event pushes, perhaps, but he was there. They always had something for him. He's the 35-time 24/7 champion or something like that. So he's got credentials on his resume.
I remember blowing some people's minds by saying that Connor and Victor were around twice as long as Demolition. Like that doesn't
That's crazy.
sound like it could be.
That's true. Crazy. But like, I actually, what was I just reading about the Road Warriors, and like all of those tag teams from that era, the Road Warriors, the Steiner Brothers, Demolition, like you think of them as having been there for like a decade or more, and they were all there for like 3 years and they were gone. It's like, think about how crazy your memory goes, like when you think about that.
Yep. Yeah, I think back to like all their crazy matches, and I'll realize I'm just thinking about 3 or 4.
The same matches. 2 matches over and over again.
Yep. So there you go. Brock Benningfield says, facts that don't sound true. Yes, absolutely. We could do a whole show on that, and I would hit you with all kinds of them. Many of them having to do with how long of careers people had, and some guys who are older than other guys. That would be one of them as well. So anyway, I believe that is our show. Thanks as always. World's greatest comment section. This should be the only comment section I read. This particular podcast's comment section. Ryan Solorio mentioning Horseshoe while I'm talking at the end. He knows.
Listen, you knew you weren't going to get through the show without Ryan saying it. So thank you, Ryan, for closing out.
Every week I forget. Even when I see Ryan's there at the beginning of the night, I'm not thinking, he's going to say Horseshoe in an hour's time.
Good night, CJ.
And throw me off a little bit. Yeah. Good night, CJ. Good night, Moon. Good night, Cow jumping over the moon. I'm Kelly Wells, and you can find me at other Kelly Wells on Blue Sky. Kevin, thanks as always for stepping in for Nate.
Hey, listen, always, you know that I'm in the bullpen, ready to rock and roll. And it's easy to be a part of a show with great hosts and the best comment section in all of the PWTorch family of networks. And yeah, thank you for having me. Again, you can find me on the social media sphere at KP Cattani. I would love to chat about whatever you want to chat about. And yeah, I look forward to doing it again soon.
Nate will be here next week. I will not, but 2 weeks from now, I believe I will be talking with Nate. But we'll see what life brings us. All right. Cheers. And we will see you in 7.